In this unit, the students are developing an understanding of bullying by reading literature, reading informational text, listening to songs, watching video clips, so that they can, in the end, create a project using all these things. Guys, today we're beginning a new unit. And the cool thing about this new unit, it's actually one of my favorite units that we do all year long, because it focuses on a topic that each and every single one of you deal with every single day. You probably see it. You've probably already seen it this morning when you came into school, or you've experienced it this morning when you came into school. And we're gonna touch on that a little bit in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to talk about for a minute the book that we're going to be reading during this unit. The book that we're going to be reading during this unit is a book called Wonder. And then in this book, the main character is facing a challenge that none of you, I mean, looking out in this crowd, none of you have to face this challenge. He has a facial deformity, and he is going to 5th grade for the first time. And as he's going to 5th grade, he's having to try to figure out, is it better to fit in or stand out? But with his facial deformity, he's naturally going to stand out. So he's trying to figure out, how do I fit in when I look so different from everyone else? As we go throughout this unit, you're going to be asking yourself that same exact question. Is it better to fit in or stand out? What does it mean to fit in or stand out? Because when I say that word, all of you might have a total different meaning of what it means to fit in and what it means to stand out. So we're going to take a few minutes, and as a class, we're going to come up with our definitions of fitting in and standing out. At the beginning of the unit, I always like to start by making sure that the students understand exactly what the essential question is saying. And in this essential question, it had 2 words, fitting in and standing out. And a lot of times the students don't really know what I mean by to fit in, and they often think that to fit in, it means that you have to change. Also, at the introduction, I want to let them know the purpose for the unit. I learned a long time ago when I first started teaching that teaching had to have a purpose. When I first started teaching, I thought that the purpose of the lesson could be, well, this is what I'm going to do with it when I graduate, or I have to do this so I can go to college. And I quickly learned that when you're dealing with 5th graders, it has to be, how is it going to affect me now? And I need to read something to you. The mayors of Carrollton and Villa Rica, the cities that you live in, have asked, they're very interested about the projects that we're doing. They're very interested in bullying and what you're learning about it, because they know it's a big problem, especially as students are getting ready to move from elementary school to middle school and all the peer pressure and things that you face. They know it's a big problem, so they're very interested in you. What they want you to do is they want you to create a documentary to be shared at a town meeting in our gym, where you will be answering this question: is it better to fit in or stand out? So throughout the unit, you're going to be taking notes. You're going to be listening to the characters, listening to the articles, listening to the songs, taking notes, trying to support your opinion, and in the end, you're going to be working in pairs to create this documentary that we're going to be sharing with our mayors about bullying, to try to help solve this problem that everybody faces. Today we're going to be doing a lesson in which we're going to be looking at writers and how writers create a picture in the reader's head. And since we're looking at that, I've composed an amazing sentence to try to get a picture in your head. And here is my sentence. The teacher was mad. What do you think about my sentence? You like it? What do you think about my sentence? Cole?
Not as exciting.
Not exciting? What?
It's simple.
Simple?
Very dull.
Dull?
It's like, doesn't have any adjectives to like make the sentence better.
Okay, so you're needing some more description. Is it giving you that picture in your head? No picture in your head? Okay, I've got to go get something. I'll be right back. What do y'all think you're doing? I walk out of the room for just 1 second and I come back and y'all are like this? What are you laughing at, Kaylee? I mean, excuse me, do you want to lose recess for a whole month? Excuse me. I don't think so. This is not the way we act. You are in 5th grade. You need to be on your best behavior. You don't need a babysitter when I walk outside the classroom. What do you think? Jasmina, what's the smirk? Do I need to call your mom? Do I need to walk down to her classroom and talk to her? Then stop. Abby, no recess. No recess for you. You know what? For the rest of 5th grade, just go ahead and pretend you're in 6th grade. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, you were mad.
Let the zone. The zone, the zone, the zone? Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Could you tell that I was mad?
Yes.
What are some things, let's talk about some things that you just saw that showed you, that created an image in your head that you may forever remember, that shows you that the teacher was mad. What did you see, Emma?
You just like yelled. It was like
Tell me something you specifically saw.
you were like making everybody lose recess just because you were so mad.
She punished everyone by taking away their recess. Okay, what else you got? Owen?
Well, you had a really angry face.
Okay.
Like
how would I write that? You can show it to me, but how would I write that?
You had furrowed eyebrows.
Furrowed. Okay. Good job. Her eyebrows. Okay, let's read this. Put your hands down. I know you have tons of things that you could say about my my little skit, but let's look at it. The teacher was mad. She punished everyone by taking away their recess. She yelled. Her face was red. Her eyebrows were furrowed. She got in the students' faces. She raised her voice as she said, "Don't laugh, don't smile." Which one does a better job of giving you an image in your head? The teacher was mad or this part right here? Which one do you get a better image? Avery? Could we make this one better? Students can talk a lot about what my writing is, the fact that it doesn't sound good if I say the teacher was mad, and they can tell me, but in their own writing sometimes it's hard to see that. So with the scars lesson or when the show don't tell lesson, when I walked in angry, I was trying to help get them to help me model for them what it should look like. So now maybe in their writing, when they go back and they see that, I can pull that back out and say, this kind of sounds a lot like the teacher was mad, doesn't it? Does that, where are your details? Where are your adjectives? And it's easier for them to see because they've seen what it was like and then what it really could look like whenever they are in such fear that they're in so much trouble. Yesterday we talked about how do writers create a picture in the reader's head. Today we are going to still be focusing on that same exact topic, but we're going to learn about a specific strategy on how authors may do that. And the strategy that we're going to focus on is using senses in our writing. Our essential question is, how do I use my senses to create a picture in the reader's mind? Now, before we go any further, I want to make sure you understand what we're talking about when I say your senses. What am I talking about when I say your senses? Yes?
Sound.
Sound.
Sight. Taste. Touch. And smell.
Smell. Excellent. Okay, so today, as we're going throughout our lesson, when I say how do I use my senses, what I'm referring to is your sense of sound, to hear things, sight, to be able to see things, taste, to taste things, touch, the feeling, the way things feel, and smell, to create a picture in the reader's mind. In order to do that, we're going to be writing a narrative about a scar that we possess. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what scars are. And leading into that, let's think about characters in books that we've read, maybe Still Away Home, maybe a book that you've read independently, and think about some scars that they have. And I want you to share some of those scars that that some of those characters in the books have. Gaddy?
Like Jeep, like he has a scar.
Okay, if I were going to illustrate it here, what kind of scar does Jeep have? Does everybody remember who Jeep is in the book Still Away Home? What kind of scar does he have?
He's African American.
And there's more than that. I mean, being African American doesn't, it within itself doesn't create a scar.
Because they had found this dead body, and she was African American too.
And what about her being African American? Not just that she was African American. That would have been, he might have been able to identify with her that they were both African American, but what did she go through that made it to where it kind of caused a scar for Jeep?
They were related.
No. Help him out. Who can help Gaddy out here? He's along the right path, but what created a scar for Jeep? There was something that he identified with that created a scar.
She was a slave.
She was a slave, right? Where would I put that scar? Where do you think that would go?
And the head.
In his head. It was kind of a head game, right? It was kind of a scar. Okay. So in the book we read Jeep struggled with the slaves' treatment. Probably can say. Okay, Cecilia.
In Lion King, Scar had a scar across his eye.
Okay, in Lion King, Scar had a. Do you know how he got that scar? Let's get about 2 or 3 more. The SCARS lesson was actually a lesson that I experienced when I went through the National Writing Project. I've changed it a little bit to make it fit what I'm trying to do. But so whenever I started writing this bullying unit and I had this SCARS lesson, I was like, there's no way that I can include a SCARS lesson in that, because bullying is a scar. It's a mental scar. It's an emotional scar. They even may have physical scars. You've all given me, or you've given me a couple of examples of scars, and I'm noticing something about these scars. When I came into this lesson, when I was thinking about scars, I was thinking like I have a scar right here on my elbow where I cut my hand. Not my hand, that's not my hand, that's my elbow. When I cut my elbow on an open can when I was a kid. I also have a scar somewhere on my hand where I got burned really bad one time. So I was thinking actually physical scars, but some of you are giving me some other kinds of scars. So let's come up with a definition for what a scar is. First of all, before we define it, it sounds like there's different types of scars. So let's go ahead and create a tree map and tell me what are some of the different types of scars that we could have. Taylor?
Like scars for life if something bad happened.
Okay. Give me an example. So are you talking about like scar your emotions?
Yes.
Emotional. So could we call it an emotional scar? Okay. Okay. What's another type of scar? Jasmine?
Physical scar.
A physical scar. Okay, and I can think of one more. Can you think of one more? Cole?
Something that you've done.
Give me an example.
Or seen. Something that you've
Seen.
seen.
So if you see something, what might that, that's probably not going to scar your eyes, but what does it scar?
Your brain.
Your brain. So what could we call it? What would we call that, a brain scar?
No, a mental scar.
Mental scar. I like that word, mental scar. What about an emotional scar? That might be a little bit different, or it is a lot different. How would you define an emotional scar? What is that? Nahala?
Maybe like something that you've seen or heard of in your life that it leaves like a tragic feeling inside that you can't like get rid of.
Okay, so an emotional scar is a scar that you said you've seen or you heard, and somebody was describing that as also a mental scar. So what would separate an emotional scar from a mental scar? What do you think?
I would say that an emotional scar, like it gives you like emotions, like it makes you feel like either if it's bad or maybe just like tragic.
Okay. I'm going to get somebody to try to help us out, okay? Because I like that word tragic and the word bad, but let's see if I can get somebody to help clear that up for us a little bit. Ansley.
Like if somebody died in your family and it was really sad, it'd stick with you for the rest of life if it was like a scar.
Okay, so could I use the word traumatic? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now that we know what an emotional scar is, a physical scar, and a mental scar, I'm going to give you your own beautiful gingerbread cutout, and you are going to identify your scars. All you're going to do is you're going to go down through here and you're going to put a mark where your scar is, and you're going to write a little note out to the side telling what the scar is. I need you to come to a stopping point. A lot of you, as I'm walking around, a lot of you have lots of scars that you want to talk about. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to share all of your scars. You're not going into the long, deep, dark secrets about all your scars right now. You're just taking a second to share your scars with the rest of your table. So everyone take a few minutes and share those scars.
I have a weird one in my brain.
A weird what?
A weird scar from a movie.
Share it with them. Tell them about your scars.
It was terrifying. And one time I slid down the sidewalk.
Tell them about your scars. Tell them.
Right here. It's from I cut myself with a.
Okay, about 15 more seconds. Now, you've had a couple minutes, you've kind of talked about that scar. I want you to pick one of those scars that you feel like you could really tell a lot about that one scar. Now, when you're focusing on this scar, I want you to think about, do I remember the sights, the smells, the sounds, the things that I felt? I'm missing one. The taste. Sometimes you can even taste the things that are around you. Think about that one scar that you think that you could really focus on. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to look at your scars on your diagram, and I want you to circle one of those scars that you feel like you could tell a whole lot about. Now, as you're thinking about this scar, I want to remind you, you're an author, so you have permission to embellish, to add details that may or may not have been there. I promise, I'm not going to tell your mom and your dad that you lied about what was in the story. We're just going to call it embellishing, okay? You're adding details. You got that one picked? Okay. On the back of your paper, don't turn over yet. Just focus on me for a second. On the back of your paper, don't turn over yet, you're going to draw a chart, and that chart is going to have sounds, sights, smells. I guess I would call that touches. Touch. Yeah, feelings would be better. And taste. That are associated with that scar. So you're going to have to think. Some of these are going to be a little bit harder than others, but I want you to think about the sounds, sights, smells, touch, and taste that are associated with you getting this scar, that time that you got this scar. Focus on that exact moment when the accident happened or the pain started. Think about that exact moment, and you're going to list those underneath there. So go ahead and turn it over. Usually in a scars lesson, there is some kind of traumatic event that has happened, whether it's an emotional scar, physical scar, or a mental scar. There's some kind of traumatic event that they can associate a smell to, they can associate a feeling to, they can associate one of those senses to. So that's one way that I modified the SCAR unit, is by adding in those senses to it, because it just works real nicely for the students to incorporate those senses into that section of their writing. Because it's a SCAR from a book, then you're going to have to go back and think about what do you think that character saw? What do you think he smelled? Okay? Okay, pain is good, but what kind of pain? Because there's different kinds of pains. There's a sharp pain that's like a knife stabbing into you. But then there can also be like a bone-breaking pain. So there's different types of pain. So when you say pain, you could be more descriptive about that pain.
I didn't really taste anything.
Now you should have identified your SCAR. You have got some ideas about some of the sights, the smells, the things that you felt, the taste, the sounds that you heard as this SCAR was happening. What I want you to do now is we're just going to draft our story. Right now, you're just trying to get your ideas out. You want to use as many of those senses as you can in your first draft, but you just want to get your story out. Tell me what happened when you got that scar. What were you doing? Where were you at? Those kinds of things. You can go ahead and start writing now. We're going to have 20 minutes of silent writing time. Everyone is writing. No one is talking. You may begin. Can you turn your paper over? Would anyone like to share their story, what they've got so far? Abigail, can you share?
When I was running outside to get something from the car, I tripped and slid down the sidewalk. When I tripped, my face hit the sidewalk and started to slide with the rest of my body. I got to the end and I saw my bloody arms, lip, leg, and cheek.
Thank you for sharing. I like how you focused on that site. We'll add some more details later.
She pushes her kids. I've seen her pull children aside with books they're reading on their own, and she sets individual goals with those kids. You know, are you going to read for 7 days? Are you reading just on the weekend? You know, how many pages should you read to, you know, finish this book in a set amount of time? Okay, this is your goal. Can you live with that? So she's always pushing her children to be better.
So the past several weeks, we have been working on our unit about bullying. Throughout that unit, we focused on that essential question, is it better to fit in or is it better to stand out? We're getting ready to move into our documentaries, and now it is time for you to answer that question. So on your piece of paper, what I want you to do is I want you to answer the question, is it better to fit in or stand out? Remember, as you answer that question, use evidence from the text that we've read throughout this semester, the books that even you've read individually, maybe watching the news, things that you've seen on the news, to answer that question. You can go ahead. Okay, go ahead and stop. Do I have anybody that would like to share? Jasmine?
I think it is both better to fit in and stand out because it is nice to have your own qualities and to be unique, but also to have a good group of friends to have these similarities with. Like in Wonder, August has a face deformity and gets noticed, but in the end is able to fit in his own way. And in a book called Junior High Jitters, Laura gets bullied and has a group of friends that likes what she likes and helps her.
At the end of the unit, when they create that documentary, they're going back and they're learning how do I use these notes? How do I use all these things that I documented, all of this evidence that I supported throughout this unit? How do I use that to create my opinion and then support my opinion in a visual representation, as in a documentary? We've used all those things all throughout the unit, but not only are they using what they've already done, but now in just creating the documentary, it requires them to think about those. How do I build the characters in my documentary so that my audience is going to believe them and care about them and support them? How do I express my opinion but support my opinion? It's easy to state an opinion, but where's your evidence that's going to support that throughout the documentary? I would like to welcome you to our town hall meeting where we will be sharing the videos that the students in our class have been working on for the past several weeks about standing out and fitting in. They've worked really hard on these documentaries, and I know you have a lot to learn from these documentaries. So we will start with our first group and enjoy the show.
Hi, my name's Abby.
My name's Kaylee.
My name's Rodney.
And my name's Gaddy.
And today we are going to be talking about peer pressure.
In this documentary, we're going to show what peer pressure is by showing videos, interviews, and pictures to show what peer pressure means.
Behind. Nothing in this world could ever bring them down. Yeah, they're invincible, and she's just in the background. And she says, I wish that I could be like the cool kids, 'cause all the cool kids, they seem to fit in. I wish that I could be like the cool kids, like the cool kids.
What is peer pressure?
It's when your friends push you to do something.
Is it good or bad?
It could be both, because they could be pushing you to do something good, or they could be pushing you to do something bad.
Like what kind of good things?
Like good things would be like church or going to school or something.
Hey, Frog, do you want to come to church with me tonight? Is bring a friend.
Well, I don't really usually go, but
It's good. You get to learn about God and Jesus and all these fun things.
maybe I will. Let's go.
Okay.
You ugly, bro.
Why you say that?
Because you ugly.
Fight! 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 Fight!
Ah! That's the cheap shot man down.
Hey, little frog! You should go fight with him. You'll be cool.
Okay, I want to be cool. Yeet.
Peer pressure is when your family members or your friends press you to do something.
Peer pressure can be bad, for example, if you are persuaded to do something that you are not supposed to do. The cliche idea of everybody's smoking a cigarette, so I'm going to smoke a cigarette, or everybody's picking on that kid, so I'm going to pick on that kid. That's an example of peer pressure being bad. So how can it be good? Everybody's working hard and making all A's, so I want to fit in and be that kid, so I'm working hard and fitting in. On your gymnastics team, Kaylee, your whole gymnastics team is working hard, they're practicing every day. You don't want to be the one to let that team down, so you're working hard and you're trying to make sure you do your part. So that's how it can be good, when you're persuaded to do those positive things, but then the negative things are the bad way.
Someone who you want to be, and like how you see yourself, I guess.
Peer pressure is all throughout a blender. In the beginning, Jack Will is pressured to fit in by betraying his friend August.
And on the nature tree, Amos Henry Miles would not have been pressured if Julie was there and gave
Falling behind. Nothing in this world could ever
Cousin Mr. Turrup relates to peer pressure because this girl named Jennifer is having trouble fitting in. Well, this girl named Danielle, she never stands up for herself, and she just wants to be with a popular group. However, Alexia is peer pressuring her not to be her friend. And then, because she's jealous, because she actually has a real friend.
Fire Girl represents peer pressure because in the book, Tom is pressured by his friends to make fun of Jessica and not be her friend.
they haven't got a clue. Yeah, they're living the good life. Can see what he is going through.